We use the trauma card to build our victim story. So our victim story, what a victim story is using our past circumstances and experiences from past relationships, from our upbringing, to weave together a story that explains our internal unhappiness and limitations and allows us to blame and avoid taking responsibility for our own actions and feelings. And in my experience, I spent from my mid-20s till I was about 31, I was in therapy on and off. And my experience of therapy was talking about my past, talking about my upbringing, talking about my relationship with my dad to explain my own insecurities, my own dysfunctional behaviors as an adult. And it enabled me in my victim story to not have to take responsibility, look at myself, and it was the perfect excuse to never have to change. And we all, as humans, can create and have a victim story. As women, we are masters of it, and we live in that victim story because it's the excuse that we can pull out anytime we want to have an out from life and an out from the marriage. And we create our normal life experiences and circumstances and turn them into these debilitating, traumatic events for why we are so damaged and broken. And again, once we're entrenched in that, there's no ability to change. So here's some examples of different victim stories. I mentioned this before, but growing up with an alcoholic father or mother who was never available. I hear this one a lot as a victim story, having a narcissistic mother who was very critical and constantly criticizing. We can create victim stories around our parents getting divorced. I have talked with women who have victim stories around growing up in a wealthy family and never having to learn how to work or be hardworking or take responsibility for themselves. And that's why they're such a mess as adults. True story. I've heard victim stories of my parents loved me too much. They were too supportive and cheered me on too much. So now I'm an overachiever and a perfectionist. My victim story was that I grew up with a strict dad and that I was that he was too harsh on me and didn't understand my sensitive nature. And that's why I turned out to be so rebellious and so dysfunctional in my early adulthood. I had another victim story that I was the baby of my family and that I was an accident, that I wasn't planned. And I used that as part of my victim story, that my brother and sister are 7 and 14 years older than me. And so by the time that my brother and sister were out of the house, my parents didn't have the energy to give me the attention that I needed and the parenting I needed. And that's why I became the dysfunctional adult that I became. That was my part of my victim story. So we've all got this. And then the problem for us as women, why this is so destructive in a marriage. And men, I know you're going to be like, oh gosh, that is so my wife. It was me as well. As women, when we live in and weave our victim story from our trauma or other life circumstances, we become experts at psychoanalyzing our husbands. We become experts at psychoanalyzing our husbands, and we begin to weave a victim story from our husbands and their upbringing that left them broken and that they brought their baggage into the marriage. And that's why we have the problems in our relationship that we have, is because my husband has not worked through the issues of his childhood. I hear this all the time. It comes up, like I said, in those consultation forms that I get when a woman books. My husband has shared your videos with me, and it has shared with me that I have emasculated him, and that's the reason that he's disengaged from the relationship, and we have the problems we have. But I don't agree with that. I think it's his childhood and that he's never worked through his childhood trauma, and that's why we have these problems. I want us to know as women that when we psychoanalyze our husbands and believe it's their childhoods that they need to work through and they haven't worked through their baggage that's impacting the relationship, and we let that be known to them, that is another form of emasculation. That is another form of emasculation. Telling our husbands that they are not good enough, that they are broken, that there is something wrong with them. That takes away their sense of being a man and being a grown-up man who can figure his life out for himself. This is the perfect escape. Having as women, our own victim story, why we've turned out the way that we are from our own childhood and our past, and then psychoanalyzing our husbands and their victim story, which prevents them from showing up in the marriage the way we want them to and creates the problems in the marriage. This is our perfect escape from responsibility. Our victim stories are an extreme lack of accountability. And so for the men out there wondering, why do women have such a hard time taking responsibility and accountability, is because we live in our victim stories. And our girlfriends live in their victim stories, and we get together and we just feed off of and enable our victim stories. I remember when I was in Camp Victim, living in my victim story, and another woman or friend would share about her challenges with her dad growing up. And then it will be like, well, yeah, that's really hard, but my dad did this. And we try to compete with each other in our victim stories. It's ridiculous. But this is why women have such a hard time taking accountability, because we're queens of being victims and creating this victim story. And what we want to know about good men is that they are problem solvers, and their nature is to take responsibility. So they want to figure things out and move forward. I'll never forget, my dad had a challenging childhood, and he shared with me not that long ago, probably a few years ago, actually. He said, after his active duty, he took college courses, and he took a course in psychology. And he said, that really helped me to understand my childhood and what happened, and helped me just to let go and understand and accept, and allowed me to move forward. So I have no hang-ups about my childhood. And that was such a perfect example of a good man just wants to figure it out and move forward. Good men don't want to wallow in the pity of their past to their wife and blame their past for their shortcomings and challenges in the marriage. That's not how good men are wired. They want to figure it out, understand it, and move on. And as women, we want to wallow in the pity of our past. We want to get the sympathy. And that's what we then project onto men, that they've got this horrible childhood and past that they need to work through. It's a projection of our own wallowing in our own victimness and over inflating life and life's challenges to be traumatic. Hello again. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility to change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges that you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to schedule a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you have unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Program for Good Men Only, that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship you have with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link below in the description to schedule a free consultation with me. Thank you so much, and I look forward to talking with you soon.